Hello and welcome to 1 Hour SaaS. I am Mubashir Iqbal, and I'm building a SaaS business in just 1 hour a day. This is update number 3. Today I focused on naming and branding for the idea that I'm moving forward, which is an uptime monitoring system focused on podcasts. I will admit I cheated a little bit with this episode, with this particular hour. Not that I did more than an hour, but I kind of knew when I had the idea a few months back that what to do. I did some brainstorming then for a good name to use, so I'm gonna stick with that one, and I'll share with you in a little bit what that name is. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about kind of, what's a good strategy for coming up with names, especially in a world where all the domain names and social media handles and all those things are already taken for all of the obvious names that you might want to use. So, obviously things like ping and uptime and monitor and websites monitor and all that kind of stuff is already taken in this kind of in this world. So my normal strategy for something like this, and it's not a unique strategy by any stretch of the imagination. Lots of other people have used this strategy, is kind of like trying to mash two words together, try and either add a kind of animal into the mix as well. Like I think one of the popular ones, Feedback Panda is a cool one. Things like that. But for me, for example, when I worked with Jack McDade on a flat file CMS, going back 6 or 7 years now, we were trying to come up with a name for that, and it was, we kind of thought about what was the core of the flat file CMS. It was this idea that you could build dynamic websites from static files, right? Like there wasn't a database, but you could still build a dynamic website. So we came up with the name Statamic because it just kind of mashed together static and dynamic. Obviously it's had its issues over the years. People have a hard time pronouncing it, but it's stuck. Although I'm not involved with this anymore, Jack and his team have done a fantastic job of moving Statamic forward, and and it's kind of become a kind of iconic, I think, in many ways. Not just because of the name, obviously, but the software itself is pretty awesome. Version 3 just came out a few weeks ago, so if you haven't had a chance to check that out, I would wholeheartedly recommend that. One of the more recent projects that I've been working with Nathan Hacker on is this idea of raising funding for SaaS companies without them having to give up equity, maintaining ownership of the full pie of kind of all their shares and stuff. So when we first started working on the idea about a year ago, we kind of called the idea Operation Pie. So that was kind of a cool idea, just because we wanted to run this operation where we kind of helped SaaS companies keep ownership all of their company while they were trying to raise some funding. It's now evolved, and we've now switched over to the name Founder Path, and that's another cool kind of mashup of words, because we're trying to give founders and kind of an alternative path to raising funding. So that's another cool one. It's kind of an easy strategy. You just kind of think about what your company is doing, what's the unique selling proposition of your company, and then you kind of like, if it's something that's available, you can kind of check that out and see if it's available on Twitter and Facebook and all those kind of things, and if the domain is available as well, and kind of stick with it. But if not, then try and just kind of mash some words together. Try and Stick with something that is easy to pronounce and stuff. But yeah, so there's just a quick little strategy there. And then I think I showed in the past just kind of a couple of other sites that I use. So if you want to check if a particular domain is available, this is, like I said, this is kind of a quick one to see which TLDs are available. I don't necessarily stick with the idea that you have to have a .com. I've done .cos and .apps and .ios as well in the past. I don't think it's a big deal to have a .com specifically. I mean, unless you're planning on kind of doing lots of advertising, and you want really strong word of mouth, i.e. people actually speaking to each other, then having a .com is kind of helpful. But if you're going to do SEO and kind of online marketing and stuff, then I don't think the TLD matters really that much. I don't think from an SEO perspective, I don't think it really matters either. I don't think Google ranks you higher because you're a .com versus not a .com. So yeah, I mean, just choose something that works well and sounds good. And as long as somebody's not using the .com, so if you come up with a name, I'm going to use the .app or the .co, that's fantastic. But if somebody's actively using the .com, then it's going to be much harder to rank higher than that. If it's just being, if it's just registered and not being used, then absolutely run with that as well. So this is a good one. I also sometimes use Noam, is another cool one because you can check if both the domain is available, but then also kind of easily check which of the social media handles are available and which ones aren't as well. So if you're worried about grabbing the Twitter handle or something like that, then this is an easy way to check kind of all of those as well. Again, not super important in terms of is the Twitter handle exactly available. I try and make the domain and the Twitter handle fairly similar, if not identical. But like sometimes, for example, so for Pod Hunt, for example, it's podhunt.app. And then I believe Pod Hunt was taken on Twitter, so I just kind of merged the sort of name and the TLD and just made it Pod Hunt app instead. So not really, again, doesn't have to be exactly the same, but similar enough where it's kind of helpful, or it's easy for people to understand the relationship there. Okay, so going back to the thing that I'm building right now. So, with this, I kind of had the same kind of idea. Like, obviously, it's for monitoring of podcasts, but I wanted to come up with something a little bit shorter than that. And so, there's there's lots of uptime monitoring systems that use the word ping in them, so hyperping, and there's kind of a few others with just ping. And so with this one, I just kind of stuck with podcast ping, because I think it was kind of a cool way to say, yes, it's about uptime and speed and, kind of, is it up and responsive, but it's also about podcasts. So it just kind of made it obvious to kind of use podcast ping. So what I did in this hour was just kind of focus more on the branding and the colors that I wanted to work with before I really think about the whole what the UI looks like. But I like to choose brand colors when I think about the sort of actual name itself, and stuff like that. So and another thing that I like to do when I do this is I use the noun project just to get some inspiration as well for iconography and things like that. So you just go in here. In this case, we're going to be doing podcast, so I don't know what we'll get, but there's lots of microphones and kind of things like that. And so usually I end up taking some inspiration from here just to kind of think about what would be a cool icon and a cool way to kind of merge the actual name and the icon that I want to use for the website. And so I did that, and I've kind of come up with this idea of podcast ping being the name, but kind of working kind of a microphone kind of thing into the actual name itself as well. And so I think, you could use it just, podcast ping just as this kind of mixture of the icon and the ping if we need kind of a small logo, but the full name itself could actually just be kind of spelled out like that. I don't know that the microphone on its own would work too well. I don't think it's distinctive enough yet, but that may be something that I can play with in the future, but I don't have to worry about that yet. But yeah, so, and I kind of like this kind of strong bluish color here. I kind of like the way that looks as well. And gives us option to kind of invert that easily as well. So depending on where we're going to use it in the user interface, we may go light on dark or dark on light as well. But in terms of how I came up with this, I just kind of went through the fonts that I owned, and I think I picked this font up from Creative Market kind of a while ago. I don't even remember what it's called, but this is a cool website if you want to just kind of see what's out there in terms of fonts, which aren't hideously expensive. There's some fonts out there that cost hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, but I found this to be kind of a good place to get some unique fonts that kind of stand out, but that, like I said, aren't going to cost you hundreds of dollars. So like I said, I don't even remember what it's called, but I picked it up a while ago. So that's kind of what I spent my day on, is just kind of thinking about colors and names and icons and branding and sort of that kind of stuff. So I'm going to take this icon and just kind of tomorrow I'm going to spend my hour just whipping up a quick little landing page, much like the 1 hour SaaS one looks like, where it's just, it's got a very simple, what's this about? Put your email in here and we'll reach out when we're ready to go live kind of thing. I would say normally I wouldn't do something like this because, I'd be building it in private and I'd probably build it a lot faster. And so in this case, because I know it's going to take me longer because I'm only working 1 hour a day, I'm going to take that 1 hour to actually build like a landing page and hopefully get some signups for the actual SaaS that I'm building, not just for 1 hour SaaS. But again, like I said, it'll be very simple and I should be able to whip that out in the 1 hour I've got to work on tomorrow. So that's it. So now we know I'll be building podcast ping. I did register the .com. I signed up for the Twitter handle, etc. Just to make sure nobody's going to sneak out from under me and try and snag all that stuff. And again, normally wouldn't necessarily have registered all of those and purchased all of those, but again, because I'm building in public right now, I figured it was a good time to kind of snag all of that stuff. That's it for now, and I'll be back tomorrow, hopefully showing you what the podcast ping website looks like, and it will be live, so you'll be able to access it, and hopefully if you have a podcast, you'll be signing up to be informed when it's live. Thanks a lot.